Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Today I want to tell you a little story, a very important story in Islam. All the Islamic stories are very important, but some are of the utmost of importance. And one of them that you don't hear too much about is the story of Muhammad ibn Muslayma, radiyallahu anhu. Now, Muhammad ibn Muslayma, he was a Sahaba. He was a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he comes into the picture of this story, right? Because of the actions of one of the enemies of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was a man, a Jew, in Medina, and as you know, the Jews lived on the outskirts of Medina in these like type of fortresses, right? They weren't all one group. There were groups of Jews on the outskirts of Medina, that was still considered part of Medina, right? So the Jews of Medina lived in these kind of like fortresses, right? And one of the men who was from these fortresses, he was a very high-ranking person in their society, a man by the name of Ka'b al-Ashraf. Now, Ka'b al-Ashraf was a poet, and in those times, somebody who was a poet, he was a big deal amongst the society because he told the story of the tribe, he told the story of the people to amongst many people who were illiterate, right? So a storyteller was very important at that time because they didn't read their history, so they would have somebody tell them their history. And that's a lot of the times the poetry was about stuff like that, like history and stuff, right? But this man, Ka'b al-Ashraf, he used to make poetry, and he started to make poetry, and his poetry was very popular in that area at that time. And he started to make poetry about Islam and about Islamic women and about the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this angered the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So one day they were having a meeting, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were having a meeting. And the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he brought this up and he said that this man, Ka'b al-Ashraf, from amongst the Jews in Medina, he has spoken about the Prophet Muhammad and angered the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has hurt the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with his words, and he has spoken about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he was talking about the problem of this man, and he said, who will take care of this problem? The problem of Ka'b al-Ashraf, who will take care of this? And there were a group of Sahaba who were standing there, or sitting down, and Muhammad ibn Muslayma stood up, sprung up. He said, I will take care of this problem, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so he had jumped up to take care of this problem. He took that into his own matter. He said, I'll take care of this. So he asked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to kill him? And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, yes. So now this mission had been given to Muhammad bin Muslayma, which at that time could possibly have been the first assassination ever, right? This was a job that had been given to him, and it seemed like he was somewhat worried about this, He was very worried about this because it was a big deal. But he had a way in, and I believe that is what possibly had got in his mind that he can do this. You see, he had known Ka'b al-Ashraf from pre-Islamic times. In Jahiliyyah, they had known each other, and they had even been like friends at one point, right? So he knew that Ka'b al-Ashraf would recognize him and would, embrace him and bring him in, right? So he went to that area of Medina, just outside the fortress, said, I'm here to speak to Ka'b al-Ashraf. Ka'b al-Ashraf was, given the announcement of his presence. He came, and just like he thought and he predicted, he embraced him, said, bring him in, this is my friend. So he brought him in, and, they were, just kind of like chilling out. He had brought him in, he would give him some food, right? So he had brought him into a situation where he had he was very close to him, right? And they had known amongst each other because the Muhammad ibn Muslim had brought some people with him, and he said, "These are my people," and they had known that the go-to signal to stab him up, to stab up Ka'b al-Ashraf, was when he would lean over to smell Ka'b al-Ashraf's hair. Okay, and this was kind of common in those days when somebody had really, if you were really close to someone, right, and their hair was smelling really nice or their beard was smelling really nice, you can ask them, "Hey, can I smell your beard?" And you would come and take a whiff of their beard. So his signal to the others that were with him to kill Ka'b al-Ashraf was when he goes to smell his hair, he's going to grab him, and that's when they just stab him up. So this was the plan, this was the mission, and the mission was successful. Ka'b al-Ashraf was killed, and Muhammad bin Muslayma came home, and he was considered to be a hero because of what he did for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hopefully this message is getting to you, and hopefully it has been helpful. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.